we try to focus on positivity with constructive criticism
Okay.
is the goal. I don't want to
Moby,
just hate
you
on
are
stuff.
garbage, but you could be
Yeah.
better if you went away forever. Okay. That's
Like, if you
constructive.
can't think of a reason why you don't like something besides, like, I wanted to see He-Man and Scully fight, this shows He-Man, that's not a reason. I'm sorry.
But they
like,
fought or something, so it's good.
Or just you didn't like it because you didn't like it. Well, sorry. Hopefully you like the next one. I'm sorry that you didn't
Yeah.
enjoy this one.
And there's plenty of other things to go watch.
Don't yuck
but-
other people's yum.
Yeah. So we heard last time about Brick and Allison's origins with Motu, but we haven't heard from Chris and Oz. So I'll just ask you real quick before we get into the episode. Chris, what is your background with Motu? And then, when you watched Revelation / like quick summary of what you thought of Revelation as well.
So, I was born in 83. We were a little bit poor, so a lot of like garage sales secondhand toys, which meant a lot of Masters of the Universe when I was real little. So it's always been a part of my life. I mean, I tell this story when I'm reviewing the Legion's Mephitor. When we moved to where I live now as a 3-year-old to make me happy, my parents bought me a Stinkor. Nice. And it had to go into the moving truck because it smelled so bad. And then we got to our destination and every piece of furniture smelled like Stinkor. So...
And then you went to college and all the dudes smelled like
Damn.
patchouli in college. So it was like coming home.
Right. Exactly. But I remember like pestering my parents late at night with the voice changer on Snake Mountain, much to their chagrin. So, I've been a Masters fan whole my life. Maybe not my top fandom, but I've been a fan. Revelation was great. I liked getting kind of a different look at the world of Eternia and really what He-Man and Skeletor meant to these other characters, the world they built, and what life looks like for everyone as they have to grow through that.
Love. Oz, what about you?
I mean, pretty much the same thing. The earliest toy line that I ever remember playing with as a kid was Masters of the Universe. And if you guys have seen on like Toy Frenzy, even sometimes on the Clubhouse, like my sister has a box of a lot of our old photos where like the earliest Christmases of my memory is just me opening up tons of Masters of the Universe stuff. So like it's been ever present my entire life. And then it goes dormant for a few years, like 20. And then it'll come back out and it'll be like, oh, look, there's all this new He-Man again. Right? Yeah, just a couple. So having gone through 2 revitalizations now, I gotta say it's great to connect with so many people who have similar backgrounds and similar love for He-Man that I do, and it's great to see a lot of new people coming into it now too, because it helps keep it alive longer, right? And that's kind of like for all of us who've been fans of it for this long, that's the idea, right? We want to see it go on for as long as it can. And the only way to do that is to breathe new life into the series.
Well said. And as the resident newbie here, I have very much, if you missed our Revelation stream, I loved it. I watched all of Revolution already. Loved it too, but I won't spoil too much. And also, speaking of that, I don't know, Johnny, did you already mention about just talking about episode 1?
I did pin a comment and like try to like. Obviously, I think almost everybody here who's excited to watch it could not wait and binged it like I did. So there is a pinned comment. I'm not going to tell you not to discuss past episode 1, but keep it to an absolute minimum. We are trying just to focus on episode 1 here tonight, and we want to get through that because we do have some folks with some limited time. So why don't we jump into talking
Plus, we're
about
doing
the first...
episodes Yeah,
We're
plus we're
doing-
doing episodes on 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah,
So we
we've
want to
got
try
more
to
coming, so
keep it fixated. Always coming. Yeah, so
that's what they said.
I'm gonna go through it, and originally I was gonna name the new voice actors at the beginning, but I think I'm just gonna name them off as we see them.
Yes, do that. That's
So
great.
what I'll do is I'll kind of like go through the scenes, and then like I'll stop and we can talk about that scene. Yeah, feel free to cut me off, or like if you want to say something before we move on to the next scene, feel free to jump in or yell at me. Either way. So first off, the narrator is a woman this time, which I thought was really cool. And the intro really focuses on dualities, which I really liked. And the first scene we're back in Subternia, and Scareglow is back, baby. And Adam and Orko are there to get Clam Champ, as I like to call him, and Fisto back. Proceed with your comments about that scene. Slash the opening.
Narrator, was the narrator not? It was a sorceress from Tila Na, the
I thought it
previous
was.
sorceress.
Which we couldn't say, Kayla.
Yeah.
Especially Allison was almost said Tila Na
I know, 'cause,
when we were
like-
going over Revelation so many times.
Tila Na, Tila's mother. She didn't even get her
Mhm.
own name. That's a discussion for another time.
That is.
I was wondering
that
why
goes
it sounded
all the way
familiar.
back to the beginning.
You just gotta like cover it up, like, oh, Tila. Nah, that's not who I'm
Nah.
talking
No.
about.
No, not at all.
Nah.
Nuh-uh.
No.
No, wait, Tila,
no.
nuh-uh. That's like her cousin, the faker Tila. Tila, nuh-uh.
That's Sheila. She's from Australia.
Right.
She rocks,
She hopped
rocks
really
the
high,
blue and
like
pink
pink.
better than Faker.
Yeah, any thoughts on this first scene before backup gets called in?
Oh man,
Slash
does
the intro.
Adam not love saying his name more than anything in the world?
Yeah, right? I got
Adam's-
mosquito.
Adam's monologuing went up to like an 11, but I loved
Mhm.
every second of it because you could just see like he was waiting for it kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yep.
It was great. And I was really trying to figure out what was going on. I was like, did Orko finally hit puberty here because of his little
I know.
wardrobe? I was like, what happened here? How did Orko get all tall? And then I'm
thought
like,
it was evil
when did he
Ed.
get legs? Why
I
is
thought
he
it was-
walking?
Tila had a baby with Orko.
Oh Lord.
Oh,
If that were the
Uh,
case, man, you thought the fandom exploded before. Well, whoa.
also, I love the parallel to Revelation
Mhm.
when we first see He-Man,
Mhm.
he's in disguise. Now we're seeing Adam for the first time in the series in disguise.
Yes.
Poetry, it rhymes.
Yes, that's right.
Bren-
It is
Brennan
like
is-
poetry. It rhymes.
It
Hi,
does.
George.
All right, George. Yeah, and I thought it was a big fu to everyone who complained about Clam Champ and Fisto too soon, like them dying too soon. I mean, they're going to get them back, and yeah, we'll find out more about that later. But I was just like, he, screw all of y'all who complained about that. So yeah. And then backup comes in from the ceiling and above, and a fight ensues. Which I have a lot of notes about this scene. But the first thing I'll say is Buzz Off, Snout Spout, aka OG Squirtor, and Pew Pew Cowboy Dude, because I had no idea who he was at first.
Rio Bla-
How
I know it's Rio.
dare you?
How did
You
you
put
Attorney is
respect
Chuck
on Rio
Norris.
Blast's name.
I have never heard
You've
Easily
him
one of my
before.
Favorite.
Like maybe
toys
I
as a
have,
kid.
but he
I'm
hasn't
with
stood
you,
out
Chris.
to me.
Especially
you
like
don't know
toy
the
habits. They are
history?
always talking about Rio Blast.
Where
Maybe.
he started as Fire Blast Man, and then he became Colonel Blast, and then he finally
He also
became
just
Rio
looks like
Blast.
generic man with like metal parts on him. So I think I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I don't
I
know.
think
But
we
we
should
saw
just be impressed-
Ram Man was back too.
He is Motu's Chuck Norris, and he is fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's
Agreed
amazing he
Well-
can breathe with no lungs. Because it's just gun cavity.
Who needs
I
to
was
breathe when you got
more,
gunpowder and pew pews in your chest?
Oh my God, who am I thinking?
Pew
Other
pews.
70s actor other than Chuck Norris.
Um,
Bronson.
Yeah, Charlie Bronson.
Charles Bronson.
Hey, I know
Oh, I
pretty
thought
much
you were gonna
everyone
say-
else, okay?
I thought you were going to
Right.
say John Holmes, so never mind.
She's new to the series.
All I
She's
know
new to
is
the
the
whole thing.
toys. And I think I've seen Rio Blast, but yeah, he just looked like everyone else. So I was like, who's this like cowboy dude? Like, I didn't know he had an accent. Like, how would I know just based from a toy he was like a cowboy? Like, what? Like, Rio Blast doesn't sound like you would be a cowboy to me, at least.
Yeah, he sounds like he's a menu item at Taco Bell, like in
Oh,
the
no.
mid-90s, and they were like, let's
I
get
was
some
thinking
Rio
the
Blast
same
burritos.
Or he's the new version. He's the follow up to the Baja Blast. To
Yeah,
Mountain Dew
right.
Baja Blast.
We thought Baja
Right.
Blast was too
You guys are sending my
ethnic,
brains
so
in
we're
all
going
sorts
Rio
of weird
Blast.
places.
Put some sour cream in that and call it a Rio Blast Supreme.
That,
Don't you
I'm
worry.
like Duran, Baja Man. It's all mad here. Yeah.
So good. Yeah, and then Ram Man comes in, and then we have Andra's back with her Hulkbuster getup, which I was very excited when Zaddy Larson said that on his stream earlier, called it the Hulkbuster outfit. I was like, that's what I said in my notes too.
It reminded me of a fancier version of the thing from Aliens that Ripley puts on for the
The
power
Power
exosuit.
loader.
Your power
yeah,
loader, yeah.
that's the power. That's what I was like. It's a Eternian version of the power loader, so I was excited.
It is very reminiscent of the Hulkbuster. I feel like since it was fighting Scareglow, we should call it the Skullbuster.
Yeah, I do like that.
I mean,
I was leaning
that.
towards Skelebuster, but that's
But
better.
he's
Skull
evil
Buster.
goes
Better.
to Skeletor, so it could
Sounds
be the
like you're-
Ghostbuster.
Yeah, I was gonna
Real
say.
Ghostbuster.
hey,
There
hook
might
him
be
up
some
with the proton
copyright.
So can I just say that there's a couple of things that have come up both when we were talking about it in Revelation and in here where there's like, I think like last time we talked about, oh, that's very Lord of the Rings, or I'm
Mhm.
forgetting right now. But and then I think we were talking about anime, The Incredible Hulk with Savage He-Man. And the thing is, one, Kevin Smith is like very much steeped in nerd culture and pop culture. Oh, Wu-Tang was the other one. And so
Yeah.
he often references those kinds of things in his, in his work, including, of course, the famous Death Star, Star Wars
Second
references.
Amendment blast.
So just like with, I think it's all intentional. I think the hey, we had an Incredible Hulk in Savage Hulk last time.
Mhm.
How about Hulkbuster? Right. And then there's a couple of other things that
Yeah.
have come up, including like the disguise that I don't know when we can bring that up, but Johnny brought something up recently that reminded me of this very clear image. And then when we saw that intro disguise, I totally thought of it. So there's like, I feel like all those kinds of nerd references, I wouldn't be surprised if they were very much intentional.
I
Well,
think,
especially-
I wouldn't be surprised either. It's Kevin Smith. He's the biggest geek of all of us.
And he wants not just to like sneak it in like he's like making something up. No, he's like, hey guys, did you see that like Hulkbuster? You got it. Like that's the vibe I always get from Mr. Kevin Smith.
Mhm, mhm.
Hey, you get that thing I sent you?
Yes.
I think Brick. I think we'll save visual aids until the end. We'll do that after we wrap up the episode talk. We have some visual aids to go through. Oz, you were gonna say something that you got cut off.
Well, I was just gonna say it cuts into that whole duality aspect too, right? Like, because again, thinking of things like the Hulk and that Savage He-Man from the first one and how that was brought around by magic. So, they don't want to be caught with their pants down against something like that again, that they had literally no defense against. And so here's a way where you can see she's already taking that technology, since the last one was all about revitalizing the magic of Eternia. And this one, you see a much more tech-heavy presence. So it comes again with that duality of we're increasing defenses to battle against the magic in case something like this could happen again.
Oh, there is even more Tolkien in Revolution, which most of it's kind of later on.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Don't you worry. Let's see. What else do I have to say about this scene? Oh, as soon as Randor was eyeing the suit, I was like, don't do it, dude. This is going to be a bad idea. This is not going to end well. I knew it was bad. But also, can we talk about the robotic Spidey Scareglow that he turned into? And how freaking cool that thing looked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
That
take
was
it.
something
I
I
want that
was
toy.
not expecting at all. Was shape shifting Scareglow. Like we'd seen him kind of do some things similar to that in the in the first series. So
Yeah.
with this, it took it to a whole different level of monstrosity. Which I love, because I love the fact that this idea of Subternia being hell, where the damned spirits basically go, and it had that much more like hellfire look to it this time around. So seeing him be able to draw upon the power of where he is his strongest and do something we've never seen before, right? Like, whoa,
Scare
what the
fist
heck?
glow champ. Okay.
And there we go.
Okay, Johnny.
Yeah, I don't think he
Yeah.
gets a toy, but I part of my brain went
It'd be
for the
cool.
merchandise, kids.
The
Mhm.
merchandising.
Do it
That
for
would
the
be an
toys.
epic, a San Diego Comic-Con like epic Scareglow with like the spider attachment and
Right.
all the
Where's
clowns.
my
Yeah, if you could like,
deluxe?
yeah, if you could like transform it too,
give
or
them
just
fisting action.
They all need
Yes.
fisting action.
They do.
There's
I mean, they
a
did it
severe-
with Motherboard, right? For SECC. Why not?
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm just saying there was a severe lack of fisting action in the new Origins line. We need to have our fisting action back and
Yes.
give it to us with Scareglow. I don't care as long as we get more fisting.
He's got all those bones, so
Look at the bones.
And then my next comment is He-Man's thighs of steel to Scareglow's head. Don't he need him in the head? Merchandising. Scareglow, the flamethrower. The kids love this one.
That's right.
Love Spaceballs.
Oh,
The
so
music
good.
is so good in this scene. Before the
Yes.
episode, I watched it with my references in, and it was just like it totally encompassing throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. And then Tila, or Sorceress Tila, coming down in her like iridescent glow, which I think that's the theme of this season, is like iridescent everything, which I love. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, the motherboard design is very well done. We'll get to that at the end of this, but I will just say now, people that were complaining about this figure, it looks exactly fucking like this thing, because like even her like joints look exactly the same, and people were complaining about that. I'm like, it's copy paste. So and then they put the seal on the top of Subternia that literally has the H on it, which I thought was really funny. I was like,
I couldn't
you
stop
had to put your logo
laughing.
on it.
it's
Branding.
branding. Everyone
You know-
understands branding in 2024.
And
That's right.
Andra especially, like as the new sort of man at arms, she's in charge of designing all this stuff. And if you look at even the Hulkbuster, like she's got her, she understands how to build in identity into like weapons of mass destruction, but also in the and we see that, we actually do see that again with the H. So on the one hand, it felt very like, oh yeah, that's a little weird, but then later, which we'll leave a pin in, when her working in the H into some other piece of armor was dope. So and
Yes.
and it's
she's-
cool because we can
Indeed.
embrace that again, because they had to change that. They kind of shifted to that H when they came out with Masterverse from the old sort of Iron Cross looking thing.
Yep.
And I like that they're kind of like embracing it and making it like, no, there's a purpose for it. But
Right.
Well, even the vintage figures, the only He-Man that had the Iron Cross on
Yep.
the Baldric was the original
The original.
He-Man. Oh, Battle Armor used the H.
All right, what did you
Thunder
call it?
Punch,
what's the correct term for the armor?
Baldric.
Okay.
The Baldric.
Nice.
You learn something new every day.
Especially from him when it comes to armor or cloaks or tack.
Yeah. Battle Armor had the H, Thunder Punch, Laser, like all the other He-Men had the
They did.
H,
H
in the
symbol.
different style. Yeah.
Well, they tried to course correct it with, the toys, because there was some outcry about it, and it was a smart move. Then when it came to the Filmation series, because they were just using so much stock animation over and over again, they couldn't really change it out of the cartoon. So it only made sense that within newer cartoons they embraced this other logo that they tried, and it definitely makes its presence more well known, and I kind of like it a lot more now than I did as a kid.
Yeah. I know I remember learning about the symbol and how it's changed. I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad they changed it. Thank God.
She's still Motherboard is still
And she's
available on
still
Mattel
up.
Creations.
Yep.
Which is
Yes.
You
insane.
can go buy her
Wow.
still.
You can go
Which-
order her.
I wonder
She'll
how
sell
much
out in the next
longer
couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think she's going to, for sure. Especially like it's copy and paste. Like you can't it's perfect. It's
Mhm.
perfect.
There you
Chef's
go.
kiss.
Go, Hal Jordan. Go.
Go
Go,
get it.
go.
Tell
Go
creation.
get
Go
it.
memorize it.
Yeah, last thing on the H, I'll just also say that did always, even the sort of reference to the Iron Cross, I think even as a kid it bothered me because it was like it wasn't of the world, you know what I mean? It kind of had too much of a reference
Yeah.
to things we had. And again, just I'm big into lore, and I love the idea of like, I don't know if they've really picked up in Revelation about like the whole thing of he, right? But wasn't that big in the CGI show?
Not so much the
I
power
think-
of he,
Oh, okay.
so much in CGI.
Okay.
I feel like
'Cause you
he
had-
was largely like comics and classics. And stuff,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
That-
I think
I
it was more
just-
classics
Yeah.
than anything else.
That was
I like that he
yeah.
has his own brand,
classics
like
thing.
that.
Right,
it's a,
right.
It's just unique to him, and I don't know. I dig it. That's all I'll say.
Well, I agree with you, Brick. It's that power of Grayskull, right?
Mhm.
And that he symbol, and not a male symbol, but just again,
Something,
that
whatever it
Trollan term for power as it's become.
I didn't know that.
Being that's something that Nutlick came up with for classics, and it works.
His
so
name is Scott.
yeah, that's what I said.
Scott
That's what I
Calvin.
But
Anywho.
just like again, seeing them kind of double down on that, especially with where this series goes. But I don't want to talk too much about that because there's other episodes.
Yeah, and then sorry, I know I said I'd be the last thing, but just from a practical
You're
level,
fine.
I heard somebody else from Mattel say it. I forget who it was, but they said you can't copyright an Iron Cross, but you can copyright an H that we designed for He-Man. So
There
totally
you
makes
go.
sense. You know, you
That's
make,
why Wonder
you make
Woman-
your mark.
Again, even better branding.
That's why they changed Wonder Woman's symbol in the 80s, because they can't copyright that eagle, but they sure as heck can
Mhm.
do that stylized W.
Yep. Cha-ching!
Interesting.
This-
The more
this is
you
interesting
know.
to know.
Stylized
the-
letters are on the table, folks.
Yeah, I like the Iron Cross, but I think I've heard more than one person say that like their main He-Man was Battle Armor He-Man,
Mm-hmm.
and he had the H. So
Yeah,
I think
he was my
either one
replacement.
works.
If you
Yeah.
didn't get into Motu toys like in the first 3 years, you did not have that version of He-Man. You had
That's right.
either Battle Armor or Flying Fists or
Mhm.
what was the other one? Thunder Punch. Because at that point it was full on. Because they only did the original He-Man for like the first 3 years, and then they moved to all the variants, which is allegedly what killed the line because you couldn't go find
Original
He-Man and
He-Man
Skeletor in their
Hmm.
basic look anymore, and kids were like, "What is this?" So
You could find it at yard sales, right? But again, that thing of not having all the accessories. So like, you still, even if you got one of the original toys, very rarely did it come with that original power harness that had that symbol. So you were just kind of, a lot of people strapped that extra armor from the accessory pack on them.
Yeah. And I think as some people are mentioning in the chat, like, I mean, this goes with like all symbols, and particularly one that's also related to the Iron Cross or used a lot in reference to it. They were usually made before they were created or like used for,
Yes.
bad people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Right.
but the problem with using them now is that since they've been associated with those people, we don't really want to promote those people because that's what most people associate them with. So yeah, it's best not to use it.
Well, and
so
it's
people
also-
complaining
Yeah.
about that being changed, or like, what is the car that has the Confederate flag on
The
it?
General Lee.
General Lee.
Yeah.
It's
Generally.
Shame, 'cause-
Lee.
The Confederate flag is a legitimately cool design, but it has so much bad behind it. Like it's a shame.
I
that
think
it-
with sort of the Iron Cross He-Man side of it, it didn't really crop up until He-Man started becoming bigger international. I think it's easy for us to forget, even myself as an old person. It's easy to forget that pre-internet, there was a point where it's like we were so sheltered in America, like in the United States, where it's like it didn't even really occur to us to think about stuff like. So when Mattel was designing it, they weren't thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a huge global brand." It's something that the majority of Americans don't have.
It's like double Canadian.
Yeah, so
Holy
but then once
shit.
it starts hitting, once Motu ends up in Germany, all of a sudden there's the okay, yeah, this is bigger than. So I like I've heard a few people, well, why did it even happen? That happened? Why they would choose it? But it's really just that, like, culturally we were very sheltered in the late 70s, early 80s, and would have never thought to go there with it. So we know better
Yeah.
now. And we've evolved.
Totally.
So,
We've learned. And if we're not learning and changing and growing and bettering ourselves every day, then what the fuck is the point of
it
living?
doesn't make us bad that we liked it then. We know better now and we can change.
Exactly.
Right.
And then at the end of this scene, unfortunately, Randor passes out. And yeah, as soon as he looked at the Hulkbuster, I was like, you're fucked. But it's funny because it ended up being something like completely different, which we'll get into that because the next scene we're at Snake Mountain, which, I mean, did anyone think that he was going to pass out or anything? Did anyone see that coming?
I didn't think that was going to happen there. I'm just glad it wasn't like someone made a mistake and he ended up getting hurt. Like it's just he's just old.
Wait, someone made a mistake?
I didn't want
like friendly fire or something?
Yeah, or like he tried to push someone out of the way. I'm like, it's just nature taking its course.
Or like,
it's not.
I thought almost that they would do something where the Hulkbuster suit like wasn't properly configured for him, and Andra didn't. Like I was almost afraid for a second they were going to do something to like, so that Andra's whole arc was, oh my god, I accidentally killed the king, which I don't like those arcs anyway. That's boring storytelling to me. So I was glad that it was mystery illness that we can't explain other than he's old, but he's not that old. Even though it's the same actor. We have an actress who's about 20 years older playing the queen now. Anyway.
One other thing about the scene, when they land on the Cloud Crusher, that ship, Andra says, got the tech, got the talent, which is very close to Winston Zedmore's. We got the tools, we got the talent.
I was wondering why that sounded familiar.
I
should have known.
I should have known. All up in this thing.
Yeah.
But I should have known Ghostbusters. Come on. Yeah.
Sorry,
so then
real
the next.
quick, here's a reference that's like Randor and his heart. So, and this comes up again. I don't know if folks follow. Like, I've come to realize after talking about Motu Revelation how much I've been inundated in Kevin Smith's stuff. But he had a heart attack. And almost died of a heart attack. So again, I think that's definitely very self-referential in this with the idea of Randor. And he also recently, not too long ago, lost his father as well. So, what's that?
He has organ failure, Randor.
Oh, yeah, but we're just assuming heart because
he just comes out like this when he when he comes out of the
I guess
the armor. But maybe.
I mean, like he could have organ failure that could have created a heart attack. That's totally plausible. Yeah. So then I quit. Next scene is at Snake Mountain. And Skelly turns Too Bad into Tech Too Bad. Does he have a specific name? I don't know. And Motherboard virtually talks with Hordak. We're going to talk about that like entire scene together. Which my first note is Snake Mountain looks dope.
Yeah.
Hella
I
dope.
agree.
Remodeled Snake Mountain
I agree.
was really, really cool. Like I've always loved
Yeah.
like the art and the scenery that goes along with
Tech
all the
Bad.
Masters Universe cartoon. And that is just like a portrait I want to hang on my wall. It looks so evil and
It's
twisted.
so cool. 2.0 bad.
I dig it. I like that.
You can
Yeah.
use that improv.
Oh, I'm stealing it for
Okay.
tomorrow. I'll send you a
Yeah, and I've always liked the filmation Snake Mountain so much better than whatever we've gotten in the toys, and so I feel like this kind of is an interesting play on that as well.
Pour
right?
one
Like,
out
I want to
for
just wanna add-
poor Triclops here, man. Demoted.
yeah,
oh, I didn't
guess
catch
it's
that.
just-
What happened?
Wait,
Did-
what?
What is?
Well,
what
he
happened
used to
Triclops?
be the main preacher
Right.
of the
Yeah.
tech cult, and now
Oh. I was
Skeletor's
like, he
got
didn't
the
die.
role. No,
right,
but
he's just kind of like
got
downgraded
demoted,
so
right?
much, like
Yeah.
seriously demoted. He
You
went
didn't
from
see
being
that
the
coming.
Pope to like some deacon in the backwoods, like where they send you when you do that thing they don't like.
didn't even get
Inside
Henry
Rollins.
Rollins whispering a line.
Right.
Oh man, I was like, yeah, I'm not seeing them promote Henry Rollins a lot. I hope he's still here, and he's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Too Bad's "You're the headbutt" line. I was like, I love these little jokes they bring in. It's so fun to me, and I think they did a really good job this whole season of Revolution, where it wasn't too much of anything. At least I felt like that. But Skeletech is pretty fucking scary looking. Like, I think this is personally, I think is the scariest looking version of Skeletor, but that might just be me.
Well, I mean, we've seen some teched out Skeletors in other versions of media. Most notably, New Adventures of He-Man from that series. And I will say, I really, really have enjoyed some of those looks. Other versions of it, I really wish never existed. So
Anytime
far,
Skeletor has hair.
yes, Allison knows exactly the one I'm talking about.
Why
Really
would he
could have
have
went my
hair?
whole
He
life
doesn't even have
without
skin.
exactly. I could have went my whole life without seeing that version, and they did it.
Damn.
But this version with like the hood covering part of it, because you never see the full like skull with the tech, and I'm like, it's got this hood covering him.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing. Like, I actually, for the first time ever, Skeletor looked terrifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I realized by speaking Moisley's comment, I forgot to do the name. So now this season we have Melissa Benoist. Is that how you say it? As Tila.
Yes. Nailed
And
it.
then Deidre Bader, who also does Randor. He is Buzzoff. Snout Spout is voiced by Stephen Root, who also does Cringer. And Marlena is Gates McFadden. And then, Motherboard is Meg Foster.
Like Foster.
Let's see. We haven't gotten to that scene yet. Rio Blast is Ralph Garman, also Fisto. And then we're about to talk about Hordak, but Hordak is Keith David.
I want to say, since you said her name, Gates McFadden is a fucking fantastic Marlena. She's perfect for Queen Marlena. I love it. She was Dr. Crusher on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah, she did a phenomenal
Wesley's
job.
mama.
It was funny because, small tangent time, because I was just thinking, like, she was in Star Trek Picard, and I'm like, she's good. Like, she's a good actress, but she's not in a lot. Like, I think she spends most of her time doing, like, she's big into dance and choreography.
Yeah,
So I was really surprised to hear her in this, but I was glad because I think she's a perfect Queen Marlena.
You know, I didn't mention it last time, and I was like, oh no, I'll just keep it light. But I gotta say that I actually wasn't super into Silverstone Like I just thought her voice and her vibe about her felt very earthly, I guess. I'm like,
I like
yeah,
this version much better too.
I do too, and I love Beverly Crusher, so I like that change. And yeah, there was the other. I also like, you know, I'm a huge Buffy fan, but I like Benoist, speaking Benoistly. I feel like speaking Benoistly does I like her, the way she sort of carried this character.
She's a little bit softer,
Fluffy.
but in a really good way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it works
and-
for Tila in this. I went back and rewatched a little bit of Revelations. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar worked for where Tila was in that series. I think Melissa works better over here for where Tila is now. So to me, I at first I was like, well, I also knew it was just Sarah Michelle Gellar couldn't do this season because of her schedule or whatever. So I got that, but I was still kind of disappointed because I'm, old school Buffy fan. The real Buffy, not Christy Swanson, whatever, Christy F off. So I was a little disappointed, but listening to the two, I think Melissa was an excellent choice for where Tila goes this season. I think they needed more of that softness with her than Sarah would have brought.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, she's younger, and Tila's supposed to be younger, so.
Well, and
I
she's
think-
married to the voice actor of He-Man. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, they got
there's
that
some good chemistry.
chemistry.
Yeah.
But to be fair, Tila was 18 or 19 when Sarah Michelle Gellar was like 3 years old doing a Burger King commercial. So I'm just saying.
In terms of like how Jordan brought up, and you brought up the Too Bad design. So here's the funny thing: even with Skeletor, like folks probably know that Skeletor is like one of my favorite characters. Period. I love the design. I've always been sort of obsessed with it, and even different iterations of him, I've really enjoyed. But Skeletech, I don't know. I passed on the action figure, and even in this, I'll say just visually speaking, not my thing. Same goes for Too Bad. Like there's some of the designs that I'm not really into, but I had no problem with it in this show. And I think that there's a couple of things later too with some of the costume changes. I was like, oh, I don't like that. But it reminds me of the MCU in general. I actually don't like the MCU's visual design and their art direction a lot. A lot of their decisions with like creatures and people, it's just not my thing. But I just let it go because the writing, I'm super sucked into the story, and that's how I felt about Revolution. Like, my visual brain was like, oh, but I was just like, oh, this is great. Kind of just the whole Skeletech thing, even though he's like in it all the time, didn't really bug me. So,
I will say, speaking moistly, I know like you want to say Benoit.
I know.
But she said in interviews it's Benoist.
Yeah, she doesn't pronounce it the correct way that we do back in Louisiana. So, but she also has an extra S in there, so I don't know what's the deal with that. So whatever, Melissa.
Yeah, she made a clear point of it in an interview, so that's why I went with speaking Benoistly.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying Melissa, because I refuse to mispronounce a word I know how to say, Melissa. Anyway.
That's fair.
Yeah, that Skeletech design though, it is rough. I don't love it, but I do love the horror of it.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
like,
I agree with what Kayla said.
Yeah,
I totally think it's scary, especially the power and a lot of the things. Like it's definitely scary in that way. But
I don't know if it's the Akira arm or the Furby eyes.
It's the Akira arm.
I just
that does
realized what it is because of the Havoc staff and how it's like thicker. One of my favorite movies is Treasure Planet. Yes, that's what they said. One of my favorite movies is Treasure Planet, and so the cyborg dude, which I'm totally blanking on his name right now. I love this movie, I swear. He because he has the one cyborg arm, but it's like really thick like that, so it reminded me of him, and he's scary. So, if so facto, nostalgic scary. I will say there is a different. There's a different form of Skelly that is my favorite this season, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm with Rick. I sort of am not wild about this design. I feel like it's 1 or 2 tweaks from being like being knocked out of the park, but it's just not quite there for some reason for me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what it is. Like parts of it I really like, and then just the whole package of it didn't quite. Again, not in a way where I was like, "Oh God, this is terrible. I'm just gonna stop watching." It just isn't. Sort of like with like I'm there with you. Like something about it's just needs a little bit more tweaking. I feel like to like nail what this look should be. So anyway,
I heard if you punch him in the gut and hold it there for 3 seconds, he just shuts down.
Yes. And then the last part of this scene, the most important part of it, where Motherboard, Long John Silver, Motherboard, virtually goes to speak to Hordak. He calls her Mistress Motherboard. I was like, oh, okay. So not only is she Mommy Motherboard, she's Dommy Mommy Motherboard.
Yep, she's totally the Dom. Yeah.
Got it.
In their
Also,
dungeon.
A lot of
With
pegging
her whips.
scenes they pulled from the show.
Meg Foster for the win. Like
yeah, she's great. Which I don't have any clue of Hordak. Once I saw him, I was like, oh, okay, I recognize him from toys, but like I have no relation to him. So I'm curious, like we all knew the Horde and Hordak was going to be involved in the season, but just that like reveal and that whole scene, I was wondering your guys' thoughts on it.
Well, as you are the newbie who has no previous conception of Hordak, why don't you tell us first what you thought of Hordak?
Well, my only note was that she's Dobby Mommy. But no, he looks terrifying, and speaking of Treasure Planet, he actually reminds me of the not the spider dude, but the Captain Flinch? Captain Flit? No. Something like that. The really bad guy who's dead on the ship that they're going to get the treasure. No, oh God. This is so much for being one of my favorite movies. He reminded me of him and how he looked. And he's scary too. That was about it. Treasure.
All right. Well, my thoughts on the Horde is always like they are the universal monsters of the He-Man universe, right? Like there's so many different of those elements of that different monster lore that goes into each one of these baddies.
Mm-hmm.
And him controlling this empire, like really getting to see the true vastness of his empire in this was pretty awesome. Like he's always just standing out, looking over the empire. Go ahead and say, Kayla.
Flint.
There
Captain Flint. I found it.
Well, and
anyone who doesn't have IMDb on your phone, I don't know what you're doing with your life. It's also he's also voiced by Peter Cullen. Anyways, continue.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say that I feel like seeing Hordak and the Horde here like really kind of amps up like the science fiction element with all these ships and you got people just working consoles all over the place.
Yep.
Like this definitely felt like Endgame. Like Revelation was Infinity War, and this was Endgame for sure.
I was waiting for like a Galaga reference on the. He's playing Galaga.
I also like, again, it does amp up the whole sci-fi element. The one of the main sort of themes throughout this is this notion of technology or sorcery versus science, or technology versus magic, sort of kind of thing going on. And I agree, like, yeah, and I really, really love that they pulled that in a way that was like, it reminded me of, I mean, it's not really spoiler alert, but I hope you get to the DreamWorks She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, because it's very much the like Horde Empire that like I always wanted to see, and it was like cool to see them like, huge ships, cool technology, conquering universes, and all of that. So and I'll just say, like,
we'll get there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, eventually. Yeah. But just to come back to Hordak and some of the questions or comments in the chat, so he's the one where I really like his visual design. I really like what they did with Hordak. And like, I don't know. I'm surprised because Hordak is so iconic and there's a look for that character that's really well established and he's a major character. So I don't know if they felt the need to because of any kind of weird rights issues or whatever. Given that, given that the She-Ra stuff is kind of a question mark. But I really, really love the new look and I want that figure and that face and that physique.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I agree, Brick.
Yeah,
I want
I've
a
never
Hordak.
been a huge fan of the Hordak design. Like it always, the original figure, the face always felt a little too cartoony almost, and I didn't care for the filmation look of him either. This is the first time I've seen a Hordak where I really was like, wow, this is a really cool design. So like for me, this is the first time Hordak has really looked and felt like a scary actual threat. So I really liked that. Like he looked creepy, scary. The voice acting
Yes.
brought it home. Like I hated sort of, the poor comet or warrior. Like that was sort of I hate in general when you kill characters are killed. Everybody is somebody's favorite, especially in Masters of the Universe. But it also just was a good way to say like this is definitely not the bumbling full Hordak that you know from the Filmation cartoon. So I appreciated everything about Hordak. Suitably menacing. My kitten growls a little bit, so
like bad guy. No,
yeah.
must protect mom.
I fully agree with Allison to the gravitas that Keith David's voiceover like just really, really brought it home. Like it gave me chills back to like that first time I watched the HBO Spawn series and heard him doing the Al Simmons. Like it was so similar to that, but it was supposed to be just like this kind of dripping, oozing, seething voice, and he totally brought it home. Just
this
completely.
Is Flint. I just sent another picture too. They're all like very dark looking, but this is Captain
so many
Flint.
eyes he has.
Yeah,
I remember
They're
watching this
also-
movie. It's been a long time.
so
They're
good.
also weird sizes.
Yeah, I don't know. I just download them from the internet. Okay. Any other comments about this scene before we move on? Here's another picture of Captain Flint.
Wait, this scene on screen right now, or the scene we were talking about?
No, the
The scene we're talking about.
Because I want to know what he uses in his hair here.
I have my own thoughts about Keith David as Hordak, but it bleeds into a larger discussion about voice acting, so I want to save it to the end after we're done talking about the episode specific.
Sounds good.
Oh, just real fast, I just gotta say though, what a wonderful use of Nintendo's VR Boy. I assume is how they're communicating long term.
The virtual boy,
Yeah.
the red
Sometimes somebody
hologram
used it.
lasers that she shoots out. Yeah,
I don't get that reference, but okay.
it's fine.
Your life is
Okay.
better without it.
Okay.
You clearly didn't get headaches from that system.
No, I don't. I played Wii. That was it. And sometimes with my friends, but I owned a Wii. Back on Eternos, everyone gathers around Randor's bed. Apparently, he has had organ failure for some weeks now. And we meet Mendor, which I was like,
It's
wow,
perfect. I mean, it's
so
Motu.
fitting.
Well,
It's so Motu.
He's from the
Who's-
comics though, so it was really cool that they brought in this.
Oh, really?
random- Yep, the 2010 Eternia Wars, I believe, when the Horde comes in the comics.
Oh,
when
I
the
read
Hordes
that. I don't
the Horde
remember him.
comes to Eternia.
Eh,
There's a Mendor, so like
Huh.
it's a cool character to bring in. Like he's one that
I'll
I've
have to-
been like, we need a figure of this. Hurry up, Mattel, make it happen. So it was cool to see him.
I'll have to reread
Yeah.
that because I do not remember him.
He's voiced by Phil Lamar. And let me go back to my notes. where was I? Oh, and I thought Man-at-Arms suit was really cool in this scene. And we get a quick glimpse of Cringer as well, which if you watched any of our previous streams, I love Cringer. My first makeup look was Cringer for our first stream. But yeah, any thoughts on this scene?
Oh
Before
man,
we
it
get
was
in-
super
Before we go
regal.
back to Castle's Grace, or not back, but go to Castle Grayskull.
Well, I mean, we've seen that they brought Eternia's doctor Mendor to the
Mhm.
realm. When are we getting Molar? I want Eternia's dentist,
Yeah.
even though he's
I
apparently
totally
a
had
terrible
him on.
dentist.
I
Which is-
also, I'm sorry. I appreciate
Go
the
for it.
smarter Cringer again. Like I never liked how bumbling he was in
Yes.
Filmation as Cringer.
Yes.
I like
Yeah.
that he is as Cringer. He's well spoken. He's
Yep.
Mhm.
he's not played for laughs or he's not cowering like Cringer. Like
I mean, he does cower. a
he's
little
very
bit.
wise. He also is another advisor for Adam, and like
Yep.
I appreciate that upgrade to the character because Cringer / Battlecat does, in my opinion, deserves so much more than like being this just for laughs sort of character until he gets a power up and then he's ferocious. Like I like
Mhm.
a capable Cringer who's like treated with respect. Again,
Yeah.
I have cats, so
I have cats.
Well,
like,
the depth added to Cringer is what really makes it stand out, right? Because when we had the original series, it was done again just as a joke, as laughs. When we get to like a 2000X series, you lose all of that, right? Like it's just not there. And now to bring it back to this version of Cringer, where there's a level of depth to it, it's like, yes, if he's going to have some speaking parts, give us some depth, give us a story arc with him. And you kind of see it in small amounts throughout Revelation and this. Like, I really, really appreciate them adding to that, right? And they kind of did that same thing with Orko. Of course, Orko has a much bigger arc in Revelation before
Mhm.
coming into Revolution here. Just again, adding that level of, we're not doing these characters just for laughs. They will have jokes. They will stay true to some comedic roots, but we're giving them character development, which is
Yeah,
nice to see.
like they're not just there for comedic relief,
Yeah.
like they have a purpose, and like you just said, they have growth and change, and yeah, their characters progress throughout the show, which is nice to see, especially from a cute pussy. Oh, I was gonna say, I hearted Brick. Do you want to speak more on the anime shaky people animation? Because I noticed that too.
Oh yeah. When Tila's sort of having her moment, like she tries her best to heal Randor, and she kind of, I guess she's like against the wall or something, or maybe the curtain, and you see this. Oh, there it is. Yeah. The little tiny animation of the pupil was like so anime and so on point in terms of just like doing a lot of heavy lifting with character and what they're feeling, what they're going through. And I'm starting to forget where we get to, so I won't in episode 1, so I don't want to jump ahead. But just in terms of the things that are going through her mind that maybe gets revealed later, or maybe for me when I was watching it, I was thinking back to Revelation and sort of like the dynamic that she had with Randor. And it got kind of tense there in the beginning, and then after, it was all good. But so I think there's this I read it at first as sort of like, oh no, regret and like trying to help him, and concerns about her power. And then I guess we learn later in this series or season or whatever it is, a little bit about what she's thinking here, and I love it. Again, tiny little shaky animation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely go check it out. It's tiny little detail, but it's so cool.
Which we're about to get to what she ends up doing. But before that happens, any other thoughts on the scene?
I was a little disappointed that neither the king nor the queen asked her to stay when she left. Like
Yeah.
I
as
thought,
a family member, like kind of thing.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
really,
Little bit.
again, as you
Same.
remember when we were discussing Revelations, I was a little part of why I was
You hurt me.
way more on Tila's side was the whole like servant thing that sort of underlies the whole relationship between Man at Arms and Tila and the royal family. And I really would have, or at least some indication that like Marlena wanted to ask her to stay and they almost got there, but it just didn't quite, Marlena's reaction just wasn't quite there. Like I wanted, like it didn't even, like if they had sort of made it look like maybe they just sort of forgot Tila because of the moment, it felt very, it felt a little off to me in that moment. I wanted, and I don't know. I would have liked if somebody had said stay and then had her say, "Oh no,
Yeah.
it's for you," and then leave because it's really clear as we progress that they do think of Tila as family.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, like for me,
Like
that
pull
I felt like
Evelyn with Orko.
Yeah.
No, stay.
so anyway,
Well,
just a
and-
little bit something.
Well, she had to
I-
leave because the story had to move her somewhere else.
Yeah, but there's
Yeah.
exactly. Like, and I'm not. It didn't. The show's not ruined. I felt like it's a little tweak they could have made to like up the drama and the emotion of it. Like these are
Mhm.
characters for some of us we've been invested in for 40 years. So like those little moments go a lot farther for us than maybe people newer to the show. But like for me,
Mhm.
like that would have hit so much harder if there had just been a moment where even if Marlena had hesitated like she was going to ask, but then maybe Tila, I don't know. Like, let's get the drama in there, guys.
And this is also that first time too in the series where they drop that Randor has a brother, which is a big story element moving forward for the rest of this series. Because, you know, they didn't bring him up at all in Revelation. So if you take this as its own continuity without the other series around it, just Revelation to Revolution, you know, that's a pretty big thing. Like they never discuss it. And it's like, hey, by the way, Randor has this brother, and this look on Adam's face of, whoa, what? Like I got an uncle out there somewhere.
Marlena too, I think, because Marlena and Adam look at each other. We couldn't see Marlena's face, but I think it was also a shock.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh, I didn't know about that.
Right. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
something that has clearly never been brought up to them before, that he lost his brother. So them dropping that in the scene was like a really big deal.
To Thanos' point, it may have been awkward if Randor told Adam to tell Tila about his feelings if she was still there. Yeah, that's a good point.
Little, not that far. Just like, hey, you're like part of the family. Stay. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Like he could have told him another time,
afterwards.
but I guess
I mean-
not because he was literally about to die.
It would have been a very awkward moment in the fact that if he asked her to stay and then brought up like, you know, I've been seeing this coming together forever. I want you two to be together. Then it adds like that extra level of pressure, like, oh, this is like my father's dying wish, or this is a father to me, and his dying wish is to see me, you know, or see us come together. And that could ruin that relationship dynamic, right? Like that is something that has been evolving through this story on its own with slight pushes from the surrounding characters. So,
and if you think of the idea of keeping the built family, then like on some level Duncan stays and Cringer stays. So ultimately you're just like Mendor out.
Yeah.
all right, Doctor, you
Get
can't
out.
do shit. You've said it. Get the fuck out of here. You serve no purpose.
There is also, and this kind of plays into stuff. This is a really tenuous thread, but it kind of plays into stuff later. Whereas Randor is the king, and family in a kingdom is blood. If you are not blood,
Right.
you don't belong in that room when the king dies.
True.
I mean, that is a way to take it. It, like I said, it's a tenuous
It is a way
thread,
to
but
take
it does justify in their minds in a kingdom. It doesn't matter how close you are. If you are not related by blood, you are not family.
Under your barely can get out. I mean,
Also, the only character
not
of
to-
color being kicked out doesn't look good, Randor.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
not good at all.
Honestly,
All
Yes.
this
them
is a
blue
good.
lines on his head.
Which I was gonna say that very much reminded me of Tila's, the 3 lines on her head
Mhm.
too. But yeah, good point, because we talked about this with Revelation that there were a lot of scenes that people were upset with for being pretty much like accurate to what would happen in reality, but people don't want that from a animated show. So yeah, I think if anyone was dying, they would probably just want like their immediate family there, or like if their family's shitty, then their chosen
Yeah.
family of friends.
When
So
I'm dying, I want everybody fucking there so that I can let them all know.
you
how
want
they
everyone fucking?
Wait, do you want everybody? Yeah, I'm with Kayla on
Everyone
this.
there.
I need some clarity on.
Yeah.
Well,
You put the
if
wrong
I'm talking
emphasis on the
while
wrong
I'm dying,
syllable.
and then
Thank
I
you,
can
bro.
tell them how they've disappointed me while they're having, and then that gives them a. So
Well,
they
I
never
mean,
forget. They remember forever.
if
Every
we're
time you
just
have
gonna
sex.
double
So
down
yes,
on
you're right.
disappointment,
No, go down in disappointment, literally. Anyway, I'm gonna have everyone there.
I love this, and does that make us
Ooh,
viewers family
good
because we
point.
got to stay? I'm gonna say yes. We're family. Allison's
Exactly,
last words. It's your
exactly,
fault.
Brendan.
Hey guys, you know what? I'm just thinking about this, but I want to say I think this crew has some good rapport and charisma. I think we're doing a great job.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean, like
indeed.
it's got like some chemistry and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
There's got some
I
good
think so
chemistry
too.
in this crew.
I
well,
think
I
so
appreciate
too.
that because I always feel like I'm the odd man out a lot of times.
No, you're making some excellent points and statements,
Mhm.
Oz. I'm glad you're here joining
We'll
us.
fill
Everybody.
you in after. That's what they said. All right.
Woohoo.
So at Castle Grayskull, Tila is trying to recreate Preternia while Orko watches on, which my first note about this is like, oh, Orko, you little voyeur, you. And we see
That's a
her
reoccurring theme.
staff. Yeah, it is a recurring theme. And we see her staff, which I thought was really cool, which I think, is in this one. Which did we see that last season? I don't know if we did.
What?
I don't
Her
remember
staff?
her having it
The
at the
Falcon
end of
staff?
the
Yeah, I don't think
show.
so.
I don't remember seeing it in the.
Yeah, I
previous-
just rewatched that whole series like last weekend real quick, and I don't remember them bringing it, which kind of why it made a big deal this season. And then they doubled down on it in what's to come with why it's a big deal, which is really
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay. I'm just double checking. It's a very quick scene, but any thoughts on that at all?
So much iridescent.
Yes. Lots of
You know-
iridescent. Indeed.
Kevin Smith has never shied away from things that he is a fan of, but he has definitely, between Revelation and Revolution, has proven without a doubt he is a huge Sailor Moon fan, and I'm kind of all for it. Like
Oh,
the transformation sequences.
oh yeah. I said that in Revelation
Yep.
Part 1 with He-Man's
Mhm.
transformation, and I have a lot to say about that later in the season too, because I just about creamed myself for that scene. Anything else? There's
We're
a lot of
talking-
quick scenes towards the end.
And real quick, we are still talking the scene between Tila and Tila, our sorceress and sorceress.
We're not there yet.
Not
Oh,
quite.
okay. Sorry.
There's
I
a
missed
quick
it. I was
scene
zoning
with
in the chat.
Randor, and then we're back to sorceress and sorceress.
He's hand magicking. And
What was
he's
the
dancing.
translucent you
Jazz
were
hands.
referring
Well,
to? My
just-
bad.
The
The
iridescent.
big spell around her that's trying to conjure
Mhm.
Preternia.
Preternia.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
when
right.
when you see the formation. Okay.
She's
Yeah.
trying
Formation
to
of the lion
summon it.
head. Yeah.
Lots of magic, glitter, sparkles,
Just-
shine, sparkle, sparkle.
And Orko
Exactly.
couldn't be bothered to help at all.
I
Nope,
know he's
didn't
just
try to
standing there.
step in or pour anything. Just he's like,
he's,
so that's what magic really looks like.
he's too busy rocking
Aw.
that scarf. That's a pretty fierce scarf, though he has. So let's
Even
It
though he's
is.
pulled it all together at the end of Revelation, he's now all really good at magic. But
he finally has a good. They finally found a good design for Orko. Like, let's just celebrate Orko finally looking good. So
I think he looks great. Yeah. I really
Orko the
do.
White is probably the best costume upgrade for
Much magic. Such
any
glitter.
character
Wow.
out of this.
I
But
didn't like Orko before Revelations, and I really loved him in Revolutions. Like, it's pretty cool.
I
um,
I
go ahead.
appreciate him. I love the fact that, like, again, too, his costumes never really kind of had anything other than being like a stereotypical kind of like wizard's robe and like hat. And now there's
Mhm.
like this tactical purpose with it. You see him constantly using his scarf and his different like parts of his costume to utilize within battle, in not just a I need time to cast a spell. I've got this almost sentient flowing cloaks, which is a theme that we do see with other sorcerers with like Doctor Strange's cape,
Mhm.
as well as even like heroes like Spawn too, where his cape is
Yep.
kind of like living and sentient. So
Cool.
it's really neat to see some other portion of Orko having function than just weird casting spells.
Yeah. The next scene we pretty much already talked about, but it's Randor. Randor has a heart-to-heart with his family and tells Adam to tell Tila how he really feels. So it's then when he says that. So yeah, we pretty much already talked about it already. And then Tila visits her mom down below. That sounds wrong.
Sorry,
She needs to...
Kayla. Before that, I just realized
Oh, okay.
something, and I'm
Yeah,
because I've been
go for it.
struggling to bring it up or not, but I'll bring it up.
Go for it.
And so there's this whole family scene. I need to talk to my family. It's awkward because they have another kid, right?
Mhm.
I mean, they did have Adam's a twin. And so there's always been this
Mhm.
weird thing of like, can we, obviously, can we talk about Shira or not nowadays because of the rights? So I will say
Mhm.
that for me, I couldn't help but not think about that thing. And I was like, oh, and if you remember at the end of the what do we want to see in Revolution, one of the things was like, man, I wish they would give us, I wish they would give us Shira. And then this scene, when I was watching this scene, I was like, I was kind of bummed because I thought, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, bummer.
She would just like walk in from the side.
Yeah,
I'm
or at
here.
least some kind of
Just an
mention or
acknowledgement.
something. But
I
yeah,
wish your
so
sister was
I'll just
here.
say,
Or
yeah, I'll just say that because I'll just leave it there. But it
Well,
was
Okay.
a little thing.
when we get to other episodes, there's a little
Yeah.
thing we
Mhm.
can talk.
No, for sure.
I've
But I'm
had
just saying,
some
in this
thoughts.
moment, I was
Yeah,
like, oh. Especially because if you remember last time we were talking about the whole question is, was this actually a actual sequel or like continuation of Filmation? And we were kind of talking about how, it could work. It could work. One of the biggest things that doesn't work is that, obviously, like, he knew his sister.
That
So
yeah, that was my
that's
thought.
yeah. So anyway, I'll just leave that there and we can
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah, we can definitely talk more about that later. So yeah, Tila visits Sorceress down below at Castle Grayskull, and she tells Tila that she needs to combine the 3 types of magic using the staffs to restore Preternia. Any thoughts on that scene?
Just women talking about snake magic.
Well, epic portions of lore within all of this scene, right? Like last season, we got to see this chamber with all the crystals where, in the original Filmation, we didn't get to see a lot of the interiors of Castle Grayskull in Filmation. We have visited these areas. Like this is more inspired from the 2000X series look, where there's a lot of like crystals and this very, again, iridescence with the glowing and such with the throughout kind of deal. That was definitely more of that look, which we've also seen carry over into other bits of the lore. So with Revelations, we got to see that area where it was like, where the sword can be used as a key to unlock the powers of Grayskull. That area below Castle Grayskull, which has never been visited. But when they brought it here and seeing this again, like this is the collective power of like where the sorceress is. I love this lore building. And then diving into additional lore, right? Like they've always talked about other magical powers besides the power of Grayskull and where it comes from, like the Havoc Staff with the Ram Stone, if you're familiar with other parts of the lore. So seeing them talk in this scene about needing all the different types of magic to rebuild heaven is really cool. And one of those things that, again, those 3 towers were really just part of the toys. We didn't get to explore them a lot until later comics that now we're getting more of that lore in the main media form, right? Like, the actual shows. And again, if this is a sequel to Filmation, it was something that they never really touched on throughout any of that. So it's really cool to get that deep dive into the lore of Eternia here. And this was just a phenomenal scene for me. I was like, oh, I want to go over to my toys and go get all of them.
Yeah, I love that she says, you need the power from all 3 of the old gods. And we kind of talked about like that last, when we were talking about Revelation, that was like one of my favorite parts of that was that whole scene at the beginning of creation, right? With the goat and then, the snake biting the goat and Zoar being there. And so it's kind of cool to see that. That was one of those things that I said, like, I hope we see that. That's what I want to see in Revolution, is a little bit more exploration of that. And just from this scene alone, I'll say I was already like, yeah, like we're really building out this universe, learning a lot more about, the limits of being a sorceress and how you can break those and like what the actual powers are behind these things. Anyway, yes. And I got excited when you mentioned Eternia, because it's so great that they're really thinking about like those old toys and bringing these stories together. The 3 towers, so cool. My only issue or question, I guess,
towers
that's still out there is Horkoth and the fact that Sorceress Lynn, or whatever you want to call her, was in a bat kind of outfit, where Sorceress Tilana was a Zoar follower with the eagle thing. So I don't know how that all works. Maybe Horkoth is not one of the old gods, but
maybe not, or maybe he's just so ancient they don't remember. Maybe Horde Prime assimilated him or something of that nature. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
You
don't
don't
know
know.
the theology we get in this episode, like
yes.
Like discussions of heaven and souls, and like it was just, it adds depth to it. It makes it, it's. I mean, obviously, like there are all these toys that have to kind of explain, but it felt like to me, like all of the discussions about why we need Preternia back, so that the souls don't just quote unquote wander and fade. Like, it was really cool that we're getting some theology for how things work for Eternia. It makes everything about. I mean, this was true for me with Revelations also, but more so here. Even though we got fewer episodes, there's a lot more density in the world building, and it feels like with just this episode, since we're only speaking about this one, but it feels like we got so much more world building in this one episode than we did in the entirety of Revelations, and I'm definitely here for it. Like, I love that it's built out so big. Like, we're getting what happens after you die and all the gods and how it all lines out. It's just really, really, for me, like at this point in my life, it's way cooler than like another fist fight. So.
Well, that was a thing they did so well back with Transformers Beast Wars, was really building like a theology and a mythology. And I'm glad to see that kind of like same like love and detail being given to your Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
Real quick.
I mean,
white hair is sexy. I currently have a thing for people with white hair. Hashtag Nurse Chapel. Hashtag Shin Hottie. Hashtag lots of people.
Eric Lensher.
Santa Claus.
Sorry,
He's
Oz,
always
go-
bringing gifts.
Ho ho ho.
He delivers packages under your tree. Anyway.
Adam. Well, luckily we're doing
Whew.
at least two more streams. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Catch up.
go watch and come back to us. And you're on the wrong channel. I know you love your boyfriend, but come over to our channel. Sorry.
We will
someone
talk
was
more
going
with
through
you,
something.
Adam, when we can.
Yes. And let's just say may or may not hear more
Nice.
about that. And from someone else who's related to the Motuverse. That is all.
Well, I will
sorry, any other
say
thought?
though, you're referring to, I'm assuming Brennan's comment. But yes, and those interviews are great. And they definitely, like, it's clear from what all the things that were tied into this whole second season or third, I don't know what you call it, that
Third
they've
season.
mapped out a lot of things, including that. I think definitely the theology's there and the sort of beginning of the cosmos, and then just like who the Horde is and all sorts of other stuff. Other characters that pop up that aren't in episode 1, so I won't say anything. But yeah, just clearly they have thought beyond the immediate story, which is rad.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna go into Randor gives his last heartfelt words to Adam and Marlena and tells Adam he can only choose King or He-Man, and he dies. Any thoughts on that before we go into the funeral scene?
Well, yeah, big time, right? Like, there's been this overall theme this entire time. Like, they saturate it very heavy, but not in a bad way, of the dualities, right? And whenever you talk about He-Man, there is always this duality. There is Adam, and then there is He-Man, and having to live this dual life. So throughout this series, we get that very much, that there's duality here, and you need to pick one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very heavy choice for him to make, because he is both. He is the champion, but he is the next ruler of Eternia.
Yeah,
I
because
will
this
say,
dude's
though,
been
that-
the champion since like 14, 15 years old. Like, he's not
Yeah.
that old.
Right.
I will also
Yeah.
say there's an irony there, because he actually says like a king. Like, I was trying to figure out like what's his reasoning for why he can't be both He-Man and King or whatever. And he actually says something about like a king can't go off on adventures, right? And abandon his people or something like that. I think that's the line. But the irony
Look,
is
Randor did it, and he got real sick. Right?
exactly the irony is
motherfucker
that that's
just
what
did.
triggered his death.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh,
Like, he was
okay,
already sick, but
Dad.
that really put a nail in the coffin, literally.
I'm speaking from experience. You can't do this.
Well, in using the terms sword and scepter, right? Was I the only one who watched or flashed to the CGI series when he used that terminology?
Oh, I
Yep.
don't remember.
Oh
No,
man,
break
there
it down.
were
Break it down.
Oh, well, when a certain character who's an uncle visits Grayskull and has to make a choice, his choice is presented to him as a sword or a scepter.
In the CGI show,
Yes.
which is fair game. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So okay, so he actually says sword, scepter. Okay.
right.
Wow. Love it.
There were a lot of little callbacks throughout this. I mean, there's the one that we all know because we all saw in the trailer, that the crest on that other suit of armor that He-Man wears later is directly from the CGI show. That was their symbol for King Grayskull. And so, like, again, bringing that little nods throughout this, calling back to elements of the CGI and the world building that they tried to do in that show. Because although it was very short-lived with only 3 seasons, they did a lot to build a lot of the world of Eternia in that series. And I'm glad to see them pulling from that and putting it into this.
Series was great. CGI series was great. Backwards and
It's
forwards.
Definitely like my second favorite. Well, I guess now maybe like third favorite series for He-Man.
Anything else about this scene before we go into the funeral scene?
Just again, you name your brother. You had a brother, but like, what about your daughter? But whatever. I'll let it go.
Brick
Yeah,
is
what
a
about
little bitter.
Indeed?
Yeah,
There's,
don't mess with Allison. She's got
There's
the
an
sword of
enemy
power.
that even King Randor cannot overcome, and that is Loyar.
Oh, I thought it was halitosis.
The evil attorney. The evil attorney of Snake Mountain.
Attorney-or.
And the
Gonna
law
stick his
offices
lead-
of Snake Mountain.
I will
Comes
say
at you with the mighty book of law.
the art in this scene, just again, kind of like the thing with the eyes on Tila, the tears. There's a couple of tears with Adam that are just so well done. Just
Mhm.
I'm sorry,
What
the
a
animation
coincidence. I happen
studio.
to have that right
Hmm?
here.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
Very
gonna
anime
do-
like.
he's
and the
becoming
way it
a
moves.
ghost.
Oh,
Mhm.
gorgeous.
I gotta say,
Powerhouse animation, killing
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
And it gets better every time. I liked Castlevania. The second
Right?
season of Castlevania got even better. Revelation was good. Like it just seems like they're upping it every
Well,
time.
yeah.
They did like some Zeus thing too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Allison and I were actually just talking about that the other day. But the way that they do their animation, it's so distinct to them, and they are just so detail oriented, and yet they also make it distinct with each of these series too. Like there's a little bit of an artistic style that's different from Revelation and Revolution than from the two different series of Castlevania, that's different from the Blood of Zeus and everything like that. They have single-handedly become my favorite Netflix animation studio, hands down, just because the work that they do in all their series.
Yeah. Real quick, Jason's comment, King Randor was poisoned. So I had a thought about that because, yeah, obviously Randor and I think Marlena did Marlena know or did she not know that he had the organ?
Oh,
She knew.
yeah, she knew.
She
It
knew.
was
Okay.
her
It was
man at
just
arms,
Adam.
basically Adam and Sorceress. Really.
Yeah.
Tila, I
Probably
don't think she-
Orko, because Orko gets to know everything.
Well, that's because we just discussed he's a voyeur, and that keeps coming up.
Yes.
Yeah, they
anyway.
he-manned Adam.
Only 3 others know the secret of my death.
Anyways, I don't know. I thought it was all of a sudden, and so I was trying to think back if there was like clearly it couldn't have been anything that happened in this episode, but like last season if there was anything happen where he could have been poisoned, but I don't know. You can tell us if there's anything more than that, but honestly, I was kind of suspicious that it was more than organ failure. But yeah, if you know more, please let us know.
I have theories. They're loose
Okay.
because I've only seen through the series once now. I had to cram it in right after work today. But that can't come up until we talk more about later episodes. So I can't really go into that.
Got it. Okay. That's fair. Yeah, and so
I think I'm seeing the thread you're going down, Oz.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
Sorry, continue.
It's picking up what you're laying down.
I'm smelling
yes, so we immediately go into the funeral scene where which right before Man-at-Arms and Marlena kind of prepare Adam, and then he tells his he tells his story about the billow bike, which
what the fuck is a billow bike?
Friend of the channel, Ryan Dole's fan club, sent me a whole note, which I'm sure y'all know this, but in case you don't know this, apparently
Kevin Smith story.
Yes. I'm just gonna read what he sent me.
Who's he?
I just said Ryan Dole's fan club.
Yeah, but do we know who the Ryan Dole fan club is? It a he?
I know who
It's
it is.
all of us.
Oh, I'm so curious. Anyways, go ahead. I'm really curious.
It's a fan club. It has many.
They sent us.
They are legion.
Let's see. While Prince Adam is eulogizing King Randor at the first episode, he brings up the story of wanting a billow bike and how there were no more left, so Randor made him one with his bare hands. He goes on to say it wasn't the same and he was embarrassed by it, but how he would do anything to ride it again. This story was directly based off of a story Kevin Smith has told about his own father and Kevin wanting a bike. The story is exactly the same. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting that he chose to put that in there.
Yeah,
love
I was
that
sharing
little
that in the live
Easter
stream,
egg.
in the P Danny and Dan Larson
It's
live stream
Pixel
earlier.
Daddy and Zaddy Larson.
Yeah,
Get
but
it right.
I love that I
P.
love that
Danny?
he's embracing the P Danny from Brian Flynn. But just that, like, yeah, that he has told that story a couple times, and he's like a big storyteller.
Yes, he does.
And
They were there
and
here
it's
earlier.
it's really beautiful because so his father died a couple years back now, I think. And that is one of the stories that he tells often. Like, it was Christmas, it was like, the 80s, he wanted a BMX bike. And so his dad like really worked hard on the garage. It's pretty much the exact same story. Worked in the garage, mom knew about it, he didn't know about it. And then when you revealed it, it was like, he's so proud of the work he did. But Kevin was like, I can't ride this thing. Like, the kids have like cool BMX bike. That's not what this is. And so he was totally like ashamed to ride it. And then he talks about like not realizing then what that was until, as an adult, just sort of regretting it. And I love that it's in this thing. And I think that's why this scene hit me extra hard, because of both that and just other stuff. I thought it was really great. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know what a billow bike is, but if you have a cloud crusher, I guess it's a wind raider.
Skeletor had a billow bike. It's an actual company, and I just happened to search it and found a picture of a skeleton dude riding one of their design bikes.
That's pretty
and
awesome.
you even see it says billow bikes. So apparently Skeletor had one too. They must have really been all the rage that year.
Randor just made it from Keldor's.
Oh, see, that's where the
feel
beef
like-
came from.
I feel like in the land of Motu, a billow bike has to be like a hover bike that like shoots out billowing clouds behind it as it goes. Like, it can't just be a bicycle.
It better
the same
have
technology
tassels hanging out of the handlebars, though,
It's the
because
same
it's not.
technology they used on Etheria to make the bubble carriage. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
so
I'm saying that I get the heart and the soul Randor put into that, but he does have Man-at-Arms there.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, he's telling the story, and Man-at-Arms is framed right over Adam's left shoulder, and I'm like, Man-at-Arms totally built the bike. But then he said how much it sucked. So if
Duncan's the whole time, I offered to help him with that.
Yeah, if Duncan had built it, it would have been baller. But
And he could
Apparently
Well,
it
the
was
fact
awful.
that he also no-sold it too, right? Like, I kept waiting for like a side eye from him or something. And the whole time he was just listening to Adam tell the story. I'm waiting to see that on him. I'm literally looking at him through the scene and nothing.
They didn't learn
nothing.
anything from Revelation. Like, stop with the secrets, y'all. Just tell
They
them you
should've,
built the
right?
bike, Duncan.
They should have, and this is a spoiler, but I was disappointed that in the big end battle, Adam didn't throw the billow bike at the villain. It all
Like, pulls it out of his pocket.
I found this. My father made it, and then threw it right at him, and then
Here's your damn technologies.
So true.
Anyway,
Sometimes
spoiler
being
alert.
a dad means being a stubborn ass to do something yourself for your kid. Yep. That was definitely my dad.
100% it.
100%. Yeah, and then we see the outfits that we saw in the trailer, or I forget if it was the trailer or the photos, and everyone's like, "Oh, what are these outfits for?" Oh, they're for a funeral. Yeah, everyone was kind of questioning it.
I'm just gonna say she's a queen. Why does her funeral garb have to be so frumpy? I'm just
bad
She's
tailors.
in mourning.
Like just
They're not used. They don't really have. You got to figure if everyone's running around in fur and loincloths, like this is,
I'm just gonna say, if I ever have to wear like a morning outfit for Matt, like there will be more cleavage than this, and I like
nice.
even if there's a veil, like there will be like no.
But it'll be like
I
a
like the
sexy
show.
veil.
It'll be like
just-
sexy morning, and then when people are no, he just died. Fuck off. Anyway,
I mean, I like to show off cleavage at
See.
funerals as well. So I mean, I'm
like
with
just
Allison.
because
on
they're
this.
dead doesn't mean
Thank
you're
you, Brick.
Brick demonetized.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we
Instantly.
saw the trailers, I think there was a sense that because again, we knew the poster was like Randor's crown, right? And there was this notion of like, I feel like they spoiled. Did they not spoil that he was
they
going to
had
die or
him like
something?
in this
Oh, yeah, it was in
Cinderella
the trailer.
glass coffin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No,
I didn't
it
watch
was
the
like-
trailer.
Yeah,
on
and
you.
in the those outfits though are very weirdly, very Dune for sure, but very weirdly
Kind of.
our worldish, like military. Like it was interesting for me because to in my head it's like he's running around in like fur and all that, and then
Fear is the
all
mind killer.
yeah, but fear is the mind killer. But anyway, but ultimately I thought it was really kind of cool to see a
And
different
Ollie's.
vibe.
I
Yeah.
understand what Alpha Magnus is saying though about dad law. I have some nephews I have to beat to continue to establish my superiority.
Not physically beat.
Oh no! Now at this point they can beat me up physically, so it's all emotional.
Yeah, you have to waterboard children. Beating them doesn't work. CPS times they can't prove waterboarding.
You gotta gaslight the hell out of kids. It's hard.
Well, where do you think
You
are?
all have
You are
such
screwed.
terrible kids around, man. I mean, I don't have to do
Oh,
any of that
good
with
thing
Connor.
Johnny-
I give
Oh, he's back.
I
I
give
was
him
here.
a
I didn't
look,
go anywhere.
and he just shuts down whatever bad behavior he's doing with just a look. What demon
I
Hashtag-
children do?
babysat my niece, and she would get up like when she would have
Don't
to go
do
to
it.
school. I'd be
Don't do
like,
it,
"Oh, you're
Johnny.
gonna wear that
Don't
to
do it.
school?" And like it was.
I love
didn't even
Johnny's
have to say,
hashtags.
"Oh, you're not leaving the house like that."
Don't
All I
do
had to
it.
say is, "You're gonna wear that to school." And then I would do that face, and then she'd suddenly change into something more appropriate. So I'm just saying, there are ways to like gaslight your children into doing what you want them to do.
Just to be clear, I don't have kids. I don't do that to kids. People at home.
All I
I-
was gonna say was hashtag child free, but since Kayla thinks I was gonna say something worse, I will say hashtag fuck them kids.
God damn it, Johnny.
And there goes my good role model clause in my contract. Damn it.
If you've watched any of our previous streams, it will make a lot more sense. If you're just watching this now,
You have to
probably
go
not
back
as
and
much.
watch the catalog. To
I
get
mean,
the
I think
information.
hashtag child free kind of explains it as well.
Yeah.
No
My
kids.
are adults.
All right. I know we're coming up towards a
Okay.
hard out for someone, so we should probably wrap up the episode.
Oh, I can go a little longer. That's what they said.
That's how I
let's see.
misled them.
Oh, fuck. No breeder club. So yeah, Keldor, aka voiced by William Shatner himself,
Yeah.
shows up and says he's Randor's brother
Billy
and the
Shat.
rightful ruler of Eternos. Which I'll say my 2 notes real quick. That was cool to get Shatner in the first episode. Second note is this a Thor/Loki situation with one blue brother? ? And
No, fuck
my
yeah.
last note, my last note before watching any of the rest was, yeah, I don't trust this dude one bit. Go ahead.
Was it the
proceed.
whiskers?
But
Yes,
he has
it was
white
the
hair. He has white hair.
The
white
evil
and black
goatee
hair.
is a
It's not the
dead
same.
giveaway.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I
he didn't
just
come in
noticed it's very
bearded. He
skunk-like.
had the evil goatee.
It is very skunk-like.
Also,
It's
worth noting, he
Stinkor
didn't show up
hiding.
until after the funeral. If you're a real family and you're caring, you show up before the funeral, so that you can be part of like the meltdown
Johnny.
everyone has. You don't just show up afterwards, like, oh, they're dead now. It's cool. I'm just gonna eat some food. So yeah.
I will agree. We have our thoughts on Shatner, but he did a great job as Keldor.
Yeah, it's the first time he hasn't like completely hammed it up in a role. I was very impressed.
I
He was very
almost-
reserved.
I almost couldn't tell it was him.
Agreed.
In this episode, just the lines he delivered in this episode, I was like, that kind of sounds familiar, but I'm not sure. And then I like he went more into, oh yeah, that's definitely William Shatner in the later episodes. But in this, the way he was delivering his lines, there was a lot of there's a different tone to it. It didn't quite sound like it was just him being William Shatner.
Yeah, he actually did some acting. I was
Yeah,
shocked.
he did not shat the bed.
He did not. He escaped that paper bag.
I give it up to the team on really trying their best to hide Keldor. Unfortunately, it was again one of these cases where the toys spoiled things a little bit. But I think it's a really cool reveal and kind of shock ending after, like, what else could be shocking after seeing the king die and having the funeral there, all of these things, and reveal that Keldor exists in this universe. But of course we knew that because of the toy reveals, but still cool, epic. Like, if I think about how they did those episode 1 shocking moments from Revelation in both parts, it's kind of cool to see that be a thing here too.
Yeah, I was not expecting, I was expecting it to be like a new rival, or maybe, Skeletor impersonating someone. The irony. Spoilers. But I was not expecting that. So quite interesting. But also, I don't know.
Well, it's great to hear your take on it, Caleb, because again, you're new to all of this, right? You haven't been tainted by previous renditions of the show where these things have come up before. Well, I mean,
these are my notes. Like, because I'm old and I put them on these. I literally wrote finger quote, Return of Keldor. Why is He-Man so trusting? It feels naive, and isn't He-Man / Adam better, smarter, and not this dumb? What the F, Adam?
Well, he's still like the naive Boy Scout. He just lost a father. Now this uncle that he never even knew existed until Randor dropped it on him 5 seconds before he died. It shows up. So Adam gets like this whole other part of his family that he never expected. And again, with this, it's nice to approach it from this being its own separate media from everything else, right? Like, so if you've seen 2000X, you know a lot more about Keldor. He was only ever mentioned in like the original mini comics in one comic. And then all the story building of who Keldor was came well after. So like in 2000X, it was very heavy that, hey, this is the origin story for Skeletor as Keldor. But they were very distinct in the beginning of Revelation that, well, it's 2000X. Keldor is Skeletor.
Yeah.
And with Revelation, there's like this big, okay, so Skeletor is a demon from another universe. And then when that toy leaked and it was like Keldor is in Revolution, I'm like, oh wow, that's going to be really neat because Skeletor is the demon that he was in the original mini comics and in the original Filmation, that how they talked about it. There was no Keldor, it was just he was this demon. So I'm like, oh, that's going to be really cool to see what they do with that. So this was really exciting to see. We were going to get a whole new Keldor story, and I was like, that's going to be a lot of fun. And then they kept him blue skinned, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah, but I'm just going to say, like, when my great uncle died, this woman showed up at the funeral, and she's like, oh, I'm his first wife, and these are our 3 children. And I'm like, nobody knows. Then my grandmother was like, no, he was married and had some kids. I'm like, but is that what they looked like? But the joke was on them. He didn't have anything.
They had blue skin too?
No.
They were gone.
They just, like, whatever. I'm not going to disparage these people because, they're technically family. But all they did was eat all of the food at the funeral and then left whenever they found out there was nothing to inherit except some medical bills. So anyway, I just don't trust anyone who you learn is your family at the funeral
Sure.
after the dirty work is over. Like, if you're not there to help carry your ex-husband's coffin and drop it in the ground and then help shovel some dirt on it, you don't get to show up and eat the food, Keldor. I'm just saying.
But it is in character with Adam. I totally hear what you're saying, and I know it's like, but it is in character with Adam in that, like, he is not naive exactly, but he's incredibly hopeful and wants to see the best in people. He literally teamed up with Skeletor last time. Like, they made a big deal of that in the Revelation, and Skeletor, even when they're butting up and teaming up against Evil Lyn, there's a joke in there where he's like, what are we going to do? Just go and talk to her? And like, literally that is what they did.
Yeah.
It's very Adam, and so here comes his, I mean, like, I think there was a little bit of a, I think there's maybe even some relief, because I think when he finds out that there's this other person who's not going to make him make the choice of being He-Man or the King, it's like, okay, cool, you do it,
Well,
but-
and even the beginning of the episode, he's trying diplomacy with Scareglow.
Right.
Yeah.
That was
And
cool.
he's-
I
And he's the
enjoyed
evil
that.
ghost.
Which they do
I was like,
that.
whoa.
Yeah, and they did that in Revelation too, especially with I mean, yeah, He-Man and Skelly did it, Evelyn and Tila did it, and yeah, there's probably some more of it this season, but you'll have to watch and find out if you haven't already.
I think it's a case of Adam would probably be a fine king, as good as Randor, if not better. He just doesn't. He's intimidated by his father's legacy,
Sure.
and doesn't believe in himself
Yeah.
as much.
But dude,
Um,
walk
And that,
in, he's
that
got
just
cool hair, man.
grounds him into reality so much too.
Yeah, and it is interesting. Some people in the chat are saying how, people show up to funerals, and may not have been around for a while. And I've literally, witnessed that as well. And yeah, that's definitely a thing that happens. So not that crazy.
I've showed up
but
at
who-
families'
so
funerals,
who-
and I didn't even know who they were. But like
Yeah.
everybody in the family's like, "Are you going to so and so's funeral?" I was like, I never met them before, and they're like, "Aren't you going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go pay my respects. I don't know who they are,
yeah,
but sure,
totally.
I'll be there."
Totally.
Like, But I also
That's-
didn't grumble no free food either. I showed up, paid my respects, said hey to the few people I knew, and then I was like, "All right, I'm gonna go out front now and smoke until we all leave."
Like,
I was dragged
Buffets
to a
and
mystery
funerals.
uncle's funeral. I get it. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other notes on this last scene? I have some general overall questions to end with. / thoughts.
Don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay. So my first question is, before the leak, did anyone guess that Shatner was going to be Keldor?
No, I swore up and down he was going to be fucking Gwildor.
Same.
I was
Mm.
kind of in that boat at first. I was kind of leaning like, "Oh, he might be Keldor," but I don't know what capacity Keldor was going to be. So, like, I wasn't sure if it was going to be like maybe a memory scene or something like that, where he'd only be in it for a second. And I would hate to think that they would waste Shatner on a cameo in an animated series.
Mhm.
So like I was really hoping he would have been somebody that was much more story heaven, or story heavy. And I was really thinking he would have been great as Granomir, because
Mhm.
like knowing that he was going to be in this thing, it was like, oh, that would be really good because he can pull off pompous dickhead. So
Pompous dickhead.
You know what's really
Well-
silly about that is that I thought Gwildor at first too, and then they pretty quickly announced that he was not going. Didn't they say that he wasn't? And then
yeah,
there
they
was
definitely said
I
he
thought
wasn't.
maybe it was like, yeah, and then I thought it was like Hordak, but then they announced who Hordak was, and then we're
Yeah,
like,
keep
who's
it.
left? And then the last one I thought was like, oh, we saw the poster. There's a picture of Granomir. It's got to be Granomir. And then they announced Q as. So I was like, who's left?
John DeLance.
And what's silly the whole time is like, we did get the leak. We knew Keldor was gonna be, and I still didn't even put
I think there's a
two
lot of
together.
people who just
Like,
did not put it there. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Mhm.
Well, we
Mhm.
just all assumed Mark Hamill would do Keldor because of like the history of the character. So like,
Kind of, but part of me was like having read so like that whole thing that Oz mentioned in the Revelation prequel, and actually in the in the Revelation prequel comic, they kind of show Skeletor's origin. And I'll just leave it there. And he's like a skeleton dude in a world that of other skeleton people, and he has a skeleton wife with a skeleton baby that gets attacked by
a little skeleton house.
This is
that,
not
like,
my skeleton
yeah.
wife.
And
This
then
is
the
not my
Wait, wait,
skeleton
this is
car.
not
my skeleton wife.
Yeah,
Excellent.
It's totally that though, like that. That is the prequel
But-
comic, Revelation.
But I thought, like, my thinking was that Keldor is real, but the way they say the backstory, my assumption, and since we're talking episode 1, my assumption right now is that Keldor actually is dead, and this is an impersonation. So this is what I'm assuming as of episode 1 when he comes back. So for that reason, I was expecting Mark Hamill. So I was also
Gotcha.
surprised when I heard a different voice, because
Yeah.
we did get the like Skeletor, there's a skull head from a different dimension, demon people. And I thought rather than sort of doing a retcon, that they would lean toward it being an impersonation of an actual dead Keldor, but because he was sent away, they don't know he's dead. Or only Randor knew he was dead, but since Randor was too busy not really acknowledging his entire family when he died,
Right.
and kicking Tila out of the room, that it just didn't come up. Oh, by the way, my presumably dead brother might show up at the funeral, and he's going to eat the entire jello mold your cousin Celia brought. That was a favor.
Well, he
now
can
that
keep it.
remember
I don't
this
like the
show.
Jello molds.
Anyway.
And I'll say that. Sorry, that with the whole thing with that. Sorry, the prequel comic and him being a skeleton. I remember even Ted BSL in an interview saying one time was like, kind of raised like, can you actually trust that it is Skeletor? Like, can you trust that story? And so that always sort of threw me off. So I was kind of just genuinely confused when they had the leak of the Keldor action figure. That's where it came from, for whoever it was said that they missed it, the leak. But then I will also say, because Oz was talking about 2000X and Keldor, Skeletor, that whole thing. And then even in the original, what was it? The Secret of Keldor, I think is what it was called. Like, it literally is called The Secret of Keldor. And they never picked up on it. And you kind of saw that like Skeletor wanted to keep that secret. And then all of that said like Skeletor, Keldor. I mean,
so they hinted at it so heavily in the mini comic that 2000X was just going to run with this forgotten storyline with like the B crew villains of Faker, Ninjor, and all that in one mini comic. Scareglow was in that, which is why it was one of my favorite mini comics. But
all that to say, it's just cool that they pull from all this stuff, and I was just happy to see it. And after watching episode 1 and just ending there, I was like, "How is this? What's going to happen?" And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, my crackpot theory in the 3 minutes between episode 1 and episode 2 was like that they're splitting the lore, and like Keldor is separate from Skeletor, and they're gonna like merge them as one being later down the line.
I thought it's yeah,
that popped in my head as well here. And like I said, I was really excited to get this all new but familiar backstory for Keldor with this series. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be really great. I'm excited to see where this goes.
And you're right. Like, I thought the exact same thing, because the history, like the classics history, was that, again, pulled from old stuff, was that Skeletor was a combination of, like, Hordak created him as a combination of a Demo Man and Keldor. So I totally thought the same thing, Johnny. I thought it was like, oh, he's going to merge this man named Keldor with this demon skeleton guy to create somehow. Wonder if it'll come true. Skeletor. We'll have to wait till episode 2.
Ooh, it rhymes, so it's good.
Skeletor
I know.
style.
I was like,
Mad
usually
poetry.
this is when I ask for predictions for next episode, but we've all watched it, so can't do that. And yeah, reminder for in the comments to try to keep it to the first episode if you can.
Right.
Because yeah, some people haven't watched more than the first episode, and that's all we're covering. And my one quick overall thought was, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I loved the continued puns slash jokes they would make, and I thought it was like perfectly sparse throughout this episode.
Yes.
And but my question, instead of doing asking what do you think is going to happen next, I'm going to ask, what do we think about this being the first episode of the season? Do you think it pulls people in, even with Randor dying? I mean, clearly, if you're already a Motu fan, I think it does, especially with the Keldor reveal. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to think about it from like a newbie's perspective, even if someone didn't watch Revelation too. Because yeah, like I didn't have like I was sad when Randor died, but definitely not as sad as probably all of you. But yeah, I was thinking about it, if someone like didn't even watch Revelation, like do you think coming into this and like having this clearly like big character die right away? I don't know. Thoughts? Go.
I didn't really like feel a whole lot when Randor died, even watching He-Man
okay.
forever. I feel like Randor has gotten more characterization in Revelation and even this early part of Revolution than a lot of previous story.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I just figured
Well,
he had more.
you see a lot more humanization of Randor through Revelation into the like Revelation and Revolution is really humanizing a lot of these characters, where in other forms of media they're all just like action heroes, right? And you know how that can be, right? You go watch an old 80s action film, these people are not really like human, you don't really feel for them. And that's kind of how like a lot of these other, even with the 2000X and all the lore and the world building they did with that, these characters were very different from having a very human feel to them. Like, that I can resonate with this character because I see them with my struggles. Like they have struggles, but they're not stuff that I would interact with or that would challenge me. I mean, maybe if some giant rolled down my block, I might have a beef with them, but I mean, it's not something that I can truly relate to in the real world. Whereas this is it's grounding them in a way that we haven't really seen before or felt before. So Randor and Marlena both, I mean, aside, Marlena got a lot more story in the older cartoons than Randor did, really. So it's really nice to get a little bit more out of him, see the affection and love that he has for Adam as a son. And that's the part that like kind of like really broke me up with it, right? He has this realization now that if he goes out with He-Man on these adventures, since Revelation revealed to him that He-Man was his son, like he's busting up Scareglow and he's like, well, Adam, you did a great job there. Like, again, it calls back to Revelation where he talks to Adam about wanting some of that pride of a father when he was talking about it with Tila and Man at Arms. Now he is actually fully experiencing that with his son, because in his eyes for so long, Adam was a failure. And he didn't realize how much he missed him until he was gone after he died. And that created a great bit of weight. And you see it. The fact that the whole arc with Randor happens one episode. He's there. They have this adventure. And then he is dead at the end of that adventure. He's gone.
Yeah.
And there's no heaven. So where does he go from here? Like that's it, right? His soul's gone now, really. And
he did.
It's like there's a lot of lost opportunity there that Randor will never get to experience. And as a father, who's had his own mental issues, who's almost not lived to see the rest of my son's life, I understand how heavy that could be. So that hit me with a very big emotional toll. So yeah, it was a very, very heavy episode.
Well, in
I'm
the
hoping it
2000
pulls a lot of people
X
Yeah.
Randor story is different, if I remember right.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
he's
he was
the first king of Eternos. Because
right.
he was a
You know,
soldier.
he was a soldier. He was captain of the guard for the Council of Elders. And then when the Council of Elders, I keep, because we talk with Eldor so much and I bring up his name now, I
Right.
have a hard time saying the term elder, but the Council of Elders. And when they choose to depart from Eternia and being the ruling governing body, it's left to Randor. So that's how he rises to power to become the king of Eternos, and it, more so Eternos than Eternia as a whole, because Eternos is one kingdom in the world of Eternia. In this, they keep definitely just calling it the king of Eternia, but like the Avians, they have their own king, Stratos. Buzzoff is a representative to the and now I can't even think of Adrenids. Thank you. It's like there are separate kingdoms than just a one overall ruler of Eternia.
Yeah.
It's but in this they basically just swapped out Eternos for Eternia. Messes.
I was gonna say because let's see the comment I was just thinking of. Yeah, I think Randor dying in the first was a result of this shorter season. If it was 10 episodes, it would have been later. I think so as well. And yeah, I agree with Thanos. I think every episode pulled you into the next. And,
Fully.
like you just said, Oz, like, I think, like, even for me, don't get me wrong, very emotional when Randor died. Like, I still cried, but, like, it, like, I think... I feel like I would have cried more if I had known about things more. And I think it's a similar tugging on the heartstrings or like pulling from real human emotion like they did with Tila at the end of the first episode of Revelation, where she, heel turns and is like, fuck this, I'm out of here, y'all betrayed me, and He-Man dies. Like, clearly we knew He-Man was coming back, but yeah, I think they did a good job, because I do think that pulls people in. I wanted to solidify that. I wasn't questioning if it was or wasn't, because I think there are some people that probably would. I don't know if there's some people that would get turned away because of that, but it's almost, I feel like now post Game of Thrones, like you see a main character die and you're like, yep, that's just another TV show. So I feel like Game of Thrones really desensitized us to that, unfortunately. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we geek the F out of here?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of stuff I want to. So the voice acting thing. Did she just froze? Kayla just froze. So I had a hard time, not a hard time, but I think we can hear you.
Am I back?
Moving.
Yeah,
Now you're back in video too. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Of course, right at the end.
I was not as high on Keith David as Hordak as everybody else, just because, I mean, it's Keith David. He's in everything. I know him most as Anderson from Mass Effect, and I've played through those games a lot. So it's Keith David.
I don't even know if I know Keith David.
He's in a lot.
As soon
He's
as
prolific.
you see him, you'll recognize him.
I looked at the IMDb before this. But
He's a great voice actor, but to me, in some cases, casting him as Hordak just kind of, like, everybody's like, that's great casting, and maybe people are going to come at me for this, but it felt kind of lazy to me, like the easy way to do it.
No, I could see that, because if you're going for a specific type of depth, like I was saying, like the way he, and you can expect it. Like we've seen him in Spawn. So you're right. Yeah, definitely it's lazy casting, because he's going to knock this out of the park for that.
Wow, he's done so much voice acting.
But yeah, I want to hear when you say lazy because he's played other villains, or the just the skill, the weight of his voice?
Just because because of how prolific he is,
Just 'cause he's
and
yeah,
the way his like the tenor of his voice, like
For
Like,
me though,
tenor and
I
timbre.
kind of
yeah,
but like at the same time, like they have such a short amount of episodes. Like
Yeah.
you need somebody who can hit the ground running and
Mhm.
deliver from the first line. We don't have
Absolutely.
enough episodes to build. So for me, like, and Hordak has to hit hard, like to work, because he's sort of the second. Like obviously we've got Skeletor and Motherboard, but like Hordak's above that. He's like sort of the big bad. So it's like he has to hit the ground running. You have to have somebody who from the first word you like stop and like pay attention. So
oh,
Honestly,
the other
what
thing
hasn't he voiced? I'm
is
still scrolling.
because of he plays the president on Rick and Morty, so I can't not think
Yeah.
about
Okay.
I don't
the
watch that.
goofy ass president of the United
Saw that.
States
Yeah.
from Rick and Morty when he's talking as Hordak. This
Oh,
sort of leads
I get
into
that.
my other point is, and I've been thinking about that not just with this, but with some other things. Like, why are they so hesitant to put effects on people's voices these days? Like, Skeletor is a voice projected out of a skull that has
I've
no
always wondered
flesh
about
or
that, too.
muscle. In Filmation, they put reverb on Oppenheimer's voice, so like it had an
Echoey sound to it.
echoey, like
Ethereal.
mystical quality to
Sure.
it.
Right.
Aside from Hordak, they didn't do anything either except like work in the snorts every now and again. But
I'm glad they
like-
kept that, by the way.
they do it with
Oh,
Transformers too. Like there used to be like effects on Transformers voice actors, but it feels like
Right.
sometimes they're there, but they're dialed so down that it still just sounds like the person doing the voice. Like I don't know why there's been this
Yeah.
hesitance to
They did it for
use
Roboto.
technology. Yeah, a little bit they did.
Yeah.
They
I
do it
think-
for Granomir too in this, but that's about
True.
it. Like, and maybe they want it to hit harder for Granomir than others, but I think it takes because I wonder what maybe someone could take Hamill's performance as Skeletor and put some effects on it to see how it would have sounded if they'd have put a little reverb or some other kind of like ethereal effect on it. And something a little mechanized, and especially once he's Skeletech, it should have had a mechanical quality to it.
Right,
That's
like
what everyone
like
would've
Mother.
thought.
Yeah.
Now that you
Yeah.
mention it, I
sorry,
really
Allison.
feel that.
I was just say then everyone would have thought it was a pop song because everyone has auto tune now. So like,
That's
Well,
what I
I-
was thinking with it. I think auto-tune ruined it.
yeah,
I think there's a
auto-tune-
fear of going too far.
I'm still scrolling on his IMDb. That was terrifying.
Oh, there
Oh,
it is.
he added a.
Oh, I forgot.
That's a
Chris,
little
can
heavy.
you do that for all my streams now when you jump in, please?
Let me know what you want, and we can do it. I mean, I did Kylo Ren.
Look your hair.
Star Wars.
No, I just want you to sound like that when you jump on my
I'm
stream.
still scrolling on his IMDb.
Yeah, he's
doesn't
very
matter.
prolific.
With him,
Look
He's
your
in a lot.
hair.
I
Flip
didn't.
your
I
goddamn
didn't go
hair.
to it. The only reason I was wondering about the lazy is because I thought maybe it's because he's like typecast. But then I was like, no, but he's played all sorts of different characters, heroes, like you said, a
Oh,
goofy
yeah.
president. I still remember him from the Fast. No, I was gonna say Fast and the Furious. Sorry.
I love this.
What was that guy's first thing? Pitch Black.
Pitch
Perfect.
Black with
Was it Pitch Black?
Yeah,
with-
the first movie was Pitch Black with Vin
Yes.
Diesel.
With Vin Diesel. Like
He was
in that
he was like
too.
the priest in that. And
Yeah,
he
and
also
I'm just-
reprised that
He
role
wasn't
a couple
that.
times.
Yeah,
Yep.
and he just plays all sorts of different roles, and he's such a great actor. So that I just wasn't sure if you meant more like
Maybe
He plays
lazy
a
isn't
type,
the wrong word.
but-
Maybe
yeah.
maybe they because it's
No, but
obvious.
just-
Like
yeah.
right, like he fits
I
the
hear
role.
you.
Like maybe
Yeah.
get a little more creative with it than just going for the obvious choice.
sure.
No,
And I
yeah.
will say that I think part of it might I actually don't just think that it's at all a voice acting thing. Like kind of it's his voice, but if you look at all the casting in this, they definitely do a lot of sort of stunt casting. And I
Yeah.
think again, I think it's very much I'm not going to put everything on Kevin Smith, but if we look at like his films, like that's what he does, right? There's like Alanis Morissette and Mark
Mhm.
Hamill, and you know, there's a little bit of that like kind of stuff where he brings those people into his films. And then I also think it's very similar to the whole notion of like, hey, that's a Lord of the Rings reference, or that's a whatever reference. I think with him, it's just like, wouldn't it be cool to see this person here? And then like, oh, Beverly Crusher or Alicia Silverstone. And
Well, he kind of gets the pop culture of it all, that we're going to be drawn to specific names, especially
yeah,
names that he also loves, that he just
Yeah.
knows are very prolific in this culture.
right.
And again, just for the same reason that I can see where Johnny's coming from about it being lazy, is the same reason I was excited about it, because I kind of knew what I was getting with that. And that's what had me hyped, because it's like, oh yeah, this is way better than the voice he had in Filmation.
Oh,
Or,
God,
you know,
I couldn't even hang with that.
I'm
I
just
could
we didn't
barely
get
hang with
Conan
Skeletor.
Doherty
I'll tell you that. Yeah.
yeah. So like it was really, really great, I think, in that respect. But I totally get where you're coming from, Johnny. And it's, yeah, 100% there. It's kind of lazy because you just
And
know.
I love the effects idea too, though. I wonder
Yeah.
about, especially for Skeletor.
I wish
like,
they
make
would
him like a
do that.
demon-y, like, yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to touch on, Chris, I love your Stinkor story that you told in the beginning. Makes me think of Pixel Dan's, how he wanted Stinkor so much, and then when he got him, he was like afraid of the figure. Which is, they're both completely opposite of I loved Stinkor as a kid. Like, I got my Stinkor and I thought he smelled great. I'm like, this doesn't stink at all. This doesn't smell bad. What's up here?
He's one of
The
my
other-
most treasured figures.
Yeah, I was shocked when they're like, Stinkor actually stinked. And I was like, what? I
Yeah.
guess,
Yeah, it
like,
wasn't
Moss Man
just a
smells like
clever name.
fine.
That's not a past
No,
tense
no, no,
thing.
like the
Vintage
actual
Stinkor
toy.
still stinks. Vintage
there's-
They
Stinkor
got that
still
stench
stinks.
in the plastic really well.
The other thing I
funny.
wanted to ask Chris, because I know he's a massive DC fan, and anybody else who is a big DC Comics fan can jump in too with their thoughts. Have you read any of the Motu DC comic? Because Motu comics have like always been DC, and they've crossed over with DC pretty easily. Have you read and read any of them? Have any of them? And what have you thought of them?
Honestly, the only one I've read, and it was because of specifically the Skeletor figure.
Hmm.
I went and I read
Okay.
the Masters of the Multiverse,
Which
which was a
recent,
really cool story.
I've read that. I read the Injustice one too. I think if you haven't read
I
that,
read
you
the-
might.
That was a
Yeah.
fun one.
The Eternia War, which is pretty much
Yep.
this storyline adapted.
And He-Man and Thundercats, which didn't cross
He-Man and
over with DC,
Thundercats, I
but was
agree.
published by them.
Yeah, no. Yeah, this
Yep.
is pretty loosely, it feels like an adaptation of that DC comic, but it doesn't. The costumes are better in this series than they were in that comic. So, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay, that's everything that I wanted to cover.
Yeah, I was gonna say just the 2-starred comments, Johnny. I don't know if we wanted to talk about either of those.
Oh, this will come up more later, but yeah, definitely. The Cloud Crusher had a very Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom feel to it,
Yeah.
and there's that. That's not the last time we'll do that. Now the other one I don't need to talk about.
Okay, cool.
That was a great ship. I gotta
This
say.
has been so much fun. I've learned so much once again. Thank y'all for joining us. And the chat was amazing. I think we all commented and were like, "This is great. This is all
Yeah.
the chats that are going on are great." It's
Good
so nice
chemistry
to
in
see.
the chat too.
Yeah, totally.
So much chemistry tonight. We could be on
yeah.
Breaking Bad.
I will say this week has done a 180 in the Motu community. That is for
Agreed.
sure. Yeah. So before we geek the F out of here, let's have our co-hosts, our unofficial co-hosts and our special guests. Brick will be on our next few streams. You want to tell everyone where they can find you,
Thanks, Darth.
what you got going on. Thanks, Dartharian.
I'm right here.
You know, all that. Okay, well, yeah, you're right here. What else do you need?
Or no, you found me. Never mind. So this Sunday, I will be on the Brick Something channel. So you can find me on here on YouTube on Brick Something, or go to bricksomething.com. It should take you there. Every Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, I do a show called Brick Something News, the needless ephemera we saw. And I do it with a co-host. This week I'll have KJ Black Genghis on. So I'm stoked on that. And then on Monday, I'll be, I think, unofficially co-hosting again. So I'm excited about that.
Official. It's official.
Okay, officially. Yeah, I kind of got like a fun little promotion at the beginning of the show. But no, I'm
It's
excited.
officially, unofficially,
Yes.
unofficial, officially. Yeah.
You said it, Kayla. Like, this is a great time for Mo2. We did have a funky time last weekend, but whatever, it's cool. We are here now, and
Turned it around.
It's really cool, man. I love the show. I've seen the whole thing through 3 times, and I've got very little sleep because of it. But but I'm just kind of excited to talk more about what's coming up later. So yeah, that's it.
Yay.
And I'm hoping to hang out maybe tomorrow at Oz's, and he can tell us all about that.
Yeah. Let's see, Allison.
Yeah. Obviously, Retro Toy Princess, my channel. You can find me there. If you are one of the people enjoying the Kenner toy catalogs I've been releasing on my channel to music, tomorrow at 10 a.m., Strawberry Shortcake 1982 booklet goes live. Monday, I'll have some sort of Monday coloring thing that goes up. Then on Wednesday, at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to have a live premiere for The Secrets of Grayskull, From Concept to Kid Stuff, which talks about Castle Grayskull through a little bit through the development, and ends with a dramatic reading of the Kid Stuff Castle Grayskull record, which has the early backstory of Castle Grayskull. Right before Filmation took over and changed some things. And I have a special voice actor who is just my boyfriend, but whatever. He used to do radio though, so he gets to do sort of like his old radio stuff, so it's exciting. But it's a fun episode, so definitely check it out. And yeah, and then daily shorts for next couple of weeks still. So
Nice. Let's see who's next in line. Chris.
Well,
You're
thanks
next.
for letting me be part of this celebration.
Great timing.
Glad to have
Yes.
you.
So I can be found over at Shiny Plastic People. I am terrible about planning things, but I'm going to announce here live that tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, that would be noon, Pacific.
Yeah.
Lucha Johnny will be joining me, and we will be discussing the Royal Rumble that's happening tomorrow. So that'll be fun. We'll try to do an hour and just kind of get our thoughts on the whole event.
Yeah, break down the card, do
Nice.
some predictions.
Nice.
Nice. And we have Mr. Ostradamus Toys.
Well, guys, tomorrow morning, and I mean morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 a.m. for all you people on the Pacific, we will have Yuka Isaacanian. I think I'm pronouncing his name correct. Toon Yuka, who has worked on many of the Dark Horse Motu stuff that has been that has happened. So he will be joining myself and the boys from Toy Frenzy, as we are going to spoil the shiz out of the rest of Revolution. So if anybody wants to watch that, it'll be full of spoilers, talking about the whole freaking series, from start to finish with him, because he's over in Europe. So that's why we're going on so freaking early tomorrow, if anybody's wondering.
That's fair.
Because when we do our normal lives at around like 9 p.m., 9:30, it's like 4 a.m. his time. He's not really up. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why we've got the special time tomorrow morning. And then later tomorrow night, we'll be doing something very similar with a whole gaggle of amazing people at the clubhouse, where it has been requested that we go over this topic and we talk about all kinds of stuff and put a spoiler warning up before the episode. So we will definitely talk about that somewhat. And since we go for 8 hours, I doubt we'll talk about Revolution for a full 8 hours. We'll even probably open up some toys or something too, and not just talk about Revolution tonight. So again, you all are welcome to come hang out and join us there. As a matter of fact, we're going to be popping a very special cherry tomorrow night.
Neil Hunter. No, just kidding.
There's no popping a cherry there, Neil. Neil's but I'd love to get Neil onto the clubhouse sometime to hang out and chat with all of us. That would be amazing.
Come on. So much fun.
He's another one of these amazing super uber fans that I love to talk Motu with anytime he's in the chat. So you are more than welcome to join us anytime you want to talk Motu, Neil.
Yeah.
And then I just got no idea where else I'll be for the rest of the week. I was even invited shortly later tonight to go over to another channel and talk about this again. So I may be doing that. I got some other stuff I got to do in between. But
I think I know what you're talking about. I just saw.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Make sure to smack that like, smack that subscribe, smack that bell icon. If you're watching on the replay, feel free to leave a comment. We appreciate y'all being here. If you want to follow us, you can follow us at GTFO channel on all those socials. So yeah, Monday we'll be talking about episodes 2 and 3 of Revolution with some special guests. Brick will be back for that, and we'll announce the guests Sunday. I'll do a post, and then Friday I think it's gonna be like a 2 streamer because we're gonna have to start early. So the first stream will be with 2 people that are very closely related to Motu, both the show and the toys. So very excited about that.
Adam and Tila. Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Adam and Tila are going to be there in the flesh. So yeah, and we'll probably announce that early in the week next week. But yeah, Brick will be back for that. And then we'll kind of do a second stream where we talk about 4 and 5 more specifically. Because I'm sure we're going to have more broad-ended questions for our guests. But yeah, look forward to that. That one will start at 5 p.m. Pacific, so that'll start sooner. So look forward to that. And regular Trek Retrek every Thursday, as usual. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Hope y'all have a fantabulous evening, day, whatever it may be. Bye. Thanks for geeking the F out with us.
awkward long goodbye.